Hello people, and welcome to part 10 of Noveria, our Cities Skylines snow build. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. And for those that do not know, every 10 episodes of our Cities Let's Plays on this channel, we do a little city recap to see how the city has grown now that buildings have leveled up and public transport systems are in place. And just everything's kind of functioning how we originally designed it. So we will recap episodes 1 through 9 today, including Sunday's live stream, so episodes 1.95 I guess. And we'll start out with where we started, Noveria, in episode 1, where we worked on our initial starting suburb, using the wonderful highway exit that the wonderful exit designed for us. Lots of repeated tree patterns and fences and pathways to help flank the introductory arterial. And now that the city is at 20,000 population, we're just starting to see this roundabout. It's just threatening to choke, and that's because this is currently the only highway connection into the city, if you discount the small industrial ones on this side of the roundabout. But currently, everyone in the city is bottlenecking through this. So what we're going to do next episode probably is introduce another highway exit here and bring on another ramp. Then of course we'll continue to add highway ramps and exits and whatnot as we kind of move around all these areas here. But the starting suburb was fairly nice, and we introduced, of course, some classic support road for schools using sugar maples and nature reserve fence, just to help bring a little more attention into our more important assets. And we developed some nice kind of main street arterial action over here as well. Let's move our time of day along a little bit so it's a touch brighter. There we go. Yeah, so some nice commercial spice down the main arterial road, and of course this is complemented with pathways in between the zoning, which brings us to some more repeated tree patterns, which then flanks into our initial residential suburb, which of course has some more repeated tree patterns, lots of repeated tree spice in Noveria already, some forestry fence too, and some dire tragic snow bushes with more forestry fence in between those zonings, just to help bring a little more personality into the suburb as well. So this was all kind of very basic boxed in grids, kind of, shattered the pattern in a couple of places and used those pathways to link them through. And then we started to move away from that grid by introducing some slight curves, lots of organic green belt to sit within these spaces here, invasive palavan pine of course. This was a nice design, I like this one. So this is just a small playground with some fencing and some kind of overgrowth and just general green belt around it. And it works really nicely with this kind of curvy road with the residentials either side. Really like that design, it's quite cute. We then implemented a little commercial waterfront, which is really coming along now. So there's trams flowing through here as well. There's the high school, of course, which is drawing a ton of people. And then just this little view here, with the commercials facing out onto the river. We've got the new walkable seawall keys now too, which are just make a world of difference to our waterfronts. Now we can see them in action. Of course, some repeated tree spice again. Repeated tree spices everywhere. But yeah, big fan of this little waterfront that's developed here. Kind of looks nice from anywhere you look, and we can probably catch a tram moving by here. Yeah, here they are. So these are nice and busy. Let's all add in more activity into the waterfront. Of course, there's an elevated bridge that heads over to the shopping mall over there, which we'll get to in a moment. And just a little moment of appreciation for this gradual crawling height that's beginning to appear now, with those high densities that we worked on a couple of episodes ago. We can just see that crawl beginning to appear, which is nice. Very organic. Yeah, so tons of people walking around here. And then again, our suburb just continues to expand in this kind of fashion. And I think that was basically it for episode 1. There's nothing overly spectacular. Just some nice general suburban patterns and commercial structure. I think it's all coming together slowly but surely, isn't it? Nice green belt here as well with the tram road. Yeah, super cute. Anyway, in episode 2, we worked on the modern hydroponics farm. This is I think this is named after Wynn, isn't it? Where's the thing? Yeah, the Wayne Goodbar hydroponics facility. So this was a concept of using farmland to fulfill some of that industrial demand, and rather than just doing another general basic farmland with crops and fields and whatnot, I thought because of the snow theme, we always get the greenhouses, we don't actually get the crop fields. I thought it would be good to kind of take it in a hydroponics type vibe, using the biodome and the vertical farm. And I think it came out alright. I think it did. Again, lots more repeated tree spice with fences leading out onto these little slip roads that help support the farm. You see there's a couple of cars that take this route back onto the highway rather than forcing their way back through this roundabout over here. Alright. Included the bakery here too. And a flour mill, slaughterhouse, some more larger industrial looking assets. And then we've got some nice layers of height with the arterial coming back up against the farm as well. You know, we get some nice views as we drive past here too. And again, we can just start to see those buildings way off in the distance beginning to make themselves known. I think I'm going to constantly mention that this episode, I think. The gradual crawling height. I'm happy with it so far. There's a snow dump over here as well. Yeah, so there's not really too much to say about this. It's pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a nice little build. And of course some repeated green city spice in here as well to bring those farmers market vibes in. I think it's turned out relatively okay. I think I'm alright with it. Kind of happy anyway. Yeah, the idea was there to be explored, and I think it's just about come off. And in episode 3, we worked on our Green Cities waterfront park again. So we were using the extension of these walkable keys, which now we can see them in action. There's just so many people walking. There's few things as satisfying in Cities Skylines as seeing people walk, I think. And I think you can build the most impressive highway interchanges or downtown road networks, but seeing people walk, there's just something about it. Yeah, so we began to develop a little green city suburb here, which has continued to grow, and there's a really nice bridge through this area, if I can find it. Where is it? It's here. So coming out of the tram park here, we introduced one of the new European 2-lane road bridges, and just the arches here really make a wonderful little frame for the smaller roads, especially when complemented with some farm fence as well. And some natural forest and layers of height, which you get a nice little curve coming up here as well. And yeah, really like the start of the suburb. Super cute design using the European bridge. There's some nice green cities commercial patterns, nothing overly designed here, just kind of generic zoning. Within a specifically designed road network to help accommodate those zonings. And then our park actually runs all the way along the length of the river, kind of from here all the way down to the town centre, and then down all the way over to here now actually, which we worked on in the live stream, starting to add some little connections into the park onto the river quays for the suburbs further down here. So we'll see that theme continue to appear throughout Noveria. Played with the idea of some repeated plaza spice with the fences and pathways. Ice sculpture park. Yeah, either side of the park gate, which I think the hedges really complement. Gives it a nice little kind of entry vibe into the park here, I think, doesn't it? And then of course this flows past the high school and the trams, over this elevated walking bridge which takes people across the river. And then we will arrive into another little park design here with some chessboards and some little kind of tiny green belts. With a nice little statue here in front of the pier with some flower beds and a restroom. All very nice kind of general park life, park designs. I really like doing this kind of stuff. Brings a lot more personality into your public transport stops, I think, as well. And when you factor in the public transport stops around these little mini park life designs, it really helps them come to life a little bit more, I think. And then this carries on down the waterfront again, running into some more little green cities, commercial blocks with a little marina here, I think, isn't it? Fishing pier. Out on the water. So again, just lots of little cute park designs. And then we emerge into some nice green belt where there's people picking up on the keys still. Always walking. So good. Of course, the tram line continues to flow through here as well. There is another tram stop just down here. We could probably do with having a little pathway connection into this park, actually. That would probably be sensible. And then just again, another little small park life design using cafes and restrooms and playgrounds and stuff. And then this emerges into our grander town centre, which we'll cover in a moment. But yeah, nice little riverfront park, and I'm probably thinking this will it will end here, because it kind of comes to a close. But we'll probably keep this park running for quite a long time, all the way down the waterfront, probably until we move into some more rural builds, and the quays stop and kind of the denser infrastructure finishes as we move into some more countryside vibes. So yeah, keep this park going as long as we can, and include some little cute designs like this to get people on. Yeah, I enjoyed the little riverfront park. You guys seem to like it as well. And in episode 4, we worked on our first town centre design, which is Minot Square, named after our wonderful Belgian prince Minot. This has been a recurring theme in my cities, a town centre, which is usually kind of a square or a rectangle or kind of some kind of identifiable shape, with lots of commercial service buildings and usually a unique building as well. And for this one we used the City Hall asset from the European stuff. And there's a ton of public transport convergence happening here now. So we have trams, which are the trams that feed out of the Riverside Park that we just took a look at. And now let's have a little glance over what's happening here. So we can probably justify a couple more trams. Is that 300? The number's a little glitched out there for some reason. Yeah, we can probably justify a few more trams on this line now. But lots of people arriving here. And this would be a fantastic spot for a park life cheese, to put a park gate here and have people actually pay to get into this little square. But also the metro line is here as well, and this is getting some nice use now as well. 195 in a week. And just lots of people walking around. Med clinic here as well, lots of fencing. And other service assets, commercial zoning. Again, very specifically chosen commercial assets in order to get the vibe that we want. There's a touch of green cities integration here as well that spills out the Riverside Park. A public library as well, of course. Some green cities car park detailing, just to kind of complement the town centre. And then of course some kind of Riverside suburbia happening here too, which has a really nice backdrop into that town centre. And then this is where the Riverside Park also ends as well, which I have not hooked this pathway in, which I did not know. So no one can actually get to the gazebo, which now they can. Wonderful. Yeah, then this flows out across the river. The Noveria cycle network also starts from this point as well. It comes under the metro bridge and links into the town centre this way. Then we did a nice little elevated bridge design here using the American Truss Bridge, the cycle highways and the tram lines. So it's a nice important looking infrastructure as we head away from the town centre. But otherwise a really simple build, nice and easy, and we're of course preparing to expand out of this with some bridges flowing over here. And we'll also have some ways back and forward across the highway here at some point as well. We're going to build our office park here, I think, up against the river. So that should be a nice time. But yeah, really cute, simple designs like this, but lots of personality to it as well, and tons of people picking up those public transport methods now too, which we definitely need some more trams here, and we're getting a lot of people waiting to actually come and get the trams. And of course there's another tram stop here as well, which feeds down this line and then over the bridge. So there's always a point I'm making Cities Skylines, is public transport convergence is massive, having different methods meet up with each other. We had it a lot in Palaven, and it also benefits your traffic as well, you know, when people can get around this easily. So yeah, nice little town centre build. You guys seem to enjoy it as well, especially Minot, after we named it after his good Belgian self. So thanks for supporting the episode, guys. This one did really well. But in episode 5, we worked on the casino oil fields, which is fitted in really nicely up against our highway now. This was a big part of the build, was having this aesthetic as people drive past it. Very strong industrial vibes, lots of very sharp oil fencing, these kind of oil containers as well. And this does back onto our hydroponics facility over here as well, which we can see at night time now. Looks really good, especially the vertical farm. Yeah, we came through the toll booth to introduce some security gate vibes next to our main building. There's also some kind of general service and processing assets over here which have just been placed until we get into building a dedicated area for them, like the heating plants and the recycling centres. And then yeah, lots of very tight, knitted together road network so we can get the asset placement right up against the main roads. Let's come into our daytime cycle here too so we can see it a little easier. But yeah, lots of repeated, also remind me what these ones are called, the petrochemical plants. Of course, the inclusion of 2 unique buildings, or unique factories rather. We have the household plastics, I think this one is, yep. So the household plastics and the petroleum refinery. All of which are making decent money. Got 4,800 out of this one. The oil area itself is making 8,000. This has been up to like nearly 15,000. And then when our petroleum refinery receives a delivery of metal, which will become a little more consistent once we introduce the ore mine into this area, which is a plan that we're planning to do here anyway at some point. More toll booth gate vibes over here. So, you know, the idea is you can't just walk into a place like this, you know, it's very secure facility, an oil refinery in real life. Also integration of some regular vanilla oil industry stuff here too. Because the assets work really nicely with the industry's DLC stuff. You know, you can get a real sample of this here where we're using the large drilling platforms. Alongside just some regular zoned industry with the oil specialization. So it's a nice way of also detailing your industrial areas is to include the base game versions within these specializations here alongside the industry's DLC stuff. And it works for all 4 of the industry types. It's not just oil. And we also came through with some pavement gravel path from the base game here just to flesh out that concrete texture around the area. So a fairly successful build of the casino oil fields. I'm really happy with it. It fits in wonderfully against the highway. It just has the vibe that I was after. Yeah, cute little build. Nice to use some factories as well. And then in episode 6, we headed right over the river to start work on our little commercial riverfront here, using the mall of moderation again as a key focus building for the build, of course, with a couple of different types of Green Cities car parking assets at the front, and lots of specifically zoned and chosen commercial to help complement this little commercial town centre. We also began designing some fairly wavy suburban designs here using the freeform tool and the angle snap just to help get some nice shapes in and break away from what was a very rigid starting grid. And of course the continued inclusion of our walkable seawall keys have continued in this area too. And just it's so nice to see people walking. Really is one of life's greatest satisfactions, isn't it? Seeing people pick up all these pathways. Yeah, this carries on down here as well. And then this whole episode was about introducing Metro into the city for the first time, of course, which flows out of here from the first town centre build that we did. And then it comes over this way. Crosses over the tram arterial, which has a stop here now as well. And then we just carried on bringing the Metro on its own little elevated embankment. And how this layer of height is also helping us decorate too. And then it crosses over the road here also. Very nice, there it goes. And then it continues to wind its way through this suburb. And then into another stop here. And then it links into this metro stop again, which is of course decorated with fencing and trees and whatnot. Then there's also the start of a cycle highway here as well. This does feed into the same cycle highway that we saw over by the town centre. And again, lots more specifically chosen commercial. I worked on some nice greenbelt designs here with the carousel asset. Lots of fencing around the backs of these commercials. Pathways, trees, all the usual good stuff. And of course some snow assets in here as well, little snowy parks. This is a ski slope, isn't it, I think? Sledding hill, rather, the same thing. So yeah, just a really simple suburban design. It was a nice way to break away from the grid. And then during the live stream as well, on Sunday, we started to bring in some very heavy arterial decoration with pathways either side. Lots more elevated walking infrastructure over here as well, which is taking people into our high density build over there. yeah, we're starting to see a really nice kind of decorated main street. It gives it a lot more personality when you start putting this much time and effort in, I think. Bringing these pathways around the backs of zoned up commercials with some more kind of polygonal fence designs in those dead spaces just to help fill them out a little bit. Yeah, otherwise a really nice build. Nice to use the model moderation a little earlier in Noveria too, because it was a fairly late asset in Palaven. It didn't get used until the outlying suburb town centre in that one, so nice to have it in nice and early. And we also started this suburb with a little heavier infrastructure, bringing an elevated American truss bridge again out of the initial start of the city over here, alongside the Green City suburb. That sits where this European bridge is. So we're just starting to see that interconnectivity appear now. You can also tell from the bird's eye view as well, with all these orange arterials just now linking into each other and keeping everyone flowing around the city, of course. So it's always nice to see that. And then episode 7, we started work on the Institute of Technology for Palaven, which is always a favourite build of mine. I love playing with the campus stuff. And this lies right next to our little commercial town centre with the model moderation and the metro lines. And we really wanted to integrate some strong, heavy public transport vibes into this campus, which we have done. So we started messing about with some dormitory layouts over here, also included some park life detailing within the campus itself, almost as like recreational grounds for the students near the dorms, including some park life props and tennis courts and actual park life assets too. The sunken metro line, or sunken train line, is also running through the middle of the campus as well, which we'll get to the train station in a minute. The metro line continues to flow over here as well, between two study halls, which again, the asset orientation here was really important. I wanted this side of the asset to face the metro, even though this is actually the front of the asset, which is a little strange, considering this looks much more important. So again, really strong points about how asset orientation can make or break a build. And then there's some more action over here as well. We've got more space for university assets when this campus level's up into its next stage, which won't be too far away now, I don't think, until we hit the next level. We've also included the police academy, of course, which is one of the campus unique buildings. And again, always a super nice, impressive asset. Partnered this with some regular park stuff, just a regular small park, is it? Yeah. And then also introduced some repeated high density residential patterns here as well, almost as like cheaper on-site housing for the campus away from the dorms. This was kind of the idea behind it. So sticking to 4x4 patterns here and waiting for these assets to come in. Kind of the red brick high density ones with the look that I wanted. And we can really see that effect coming into play now as well, I think, especially from down at street level. We can really see it. There's also some commercial integrated in here as well. But yeah, really nice kind of ground level view now around the campus. And then carrying on over here as well, some more green belt and the police helicopter depot next to the police academy. So this right here is essentially the campus's mini transport hub. We have metro and train converging here, both internal train lines and intercity trains, and these bypass stations are set up to receive both, so that's going to be a nice little addition for the city. And this is the current end of the metro line. This is the one that starts in the town centre all the way over here, so it just kind of flows all the way up to this point. And which again is another example of public transport convergence. We're getting a ton of people using the pathways here on the metro to cross over the road and down towards the stadium, which is a part of our campus as well. And then it links back through here with pathways, which takes people into the dorms. And then we built a little kind of centralized plaza using the cafeteria and the fountain out at the front of the train station here as well. So yeah, I think the idea of a public transport themed campus really came together, and it's definitely a theme it will continue to run with this campus build as it continues to grow and expand. So yeah, that was our little campus here. It's not done yet, of course. We can see where we're planning to expand out here and keep building this campus around our next build, which was in episode 8. We began work on Noveria. I think is what you guys want it called, which we will do eventually. But this is the staple in my cities now, the Green Cities canal build, or at least the start of it, which is exactly what it says on the tin. The Green Cities assets pair really nicely with the canal network stuff, and it's a very nice aesthetic, especially when you get down to street level here. Especially with the high density res too, works really, really nicely. We kind of focus all this around a central commercial square, which again sits at the head of another one of the content creator train stations, which has this thrown angle on its platform, which has worked out really nicely. I see there's a few people catching the train back into here now. This station is not allowing intercity trains. I don't want them to keep coming down here, because this will eventually feed into the downtown. So they can transfer from that one over to this one instead. We also discovered some cute new shattered oval patterns using some of the Green City high res, which again, there's always, doesn't matter how many hours you have in this game, there's always a new Green Cities pattern to be discovered, I think. We even discovered one on this episode using these assets in repeated patterns. Just to bring that shattered oval, I guess is the phrase, right? Of course, lots of pathways back and to across the waterways here, helping people move around, and there's also a trolleybus network in this area too, which this was an episode about how to use trolleybuses effectively, and really the best way to use them is on... Are we going to crash? No, I think we're good. Nearly crashed there for a second. Shorter localized transport loops linking different methods of public transport together is the best way I've found to use trolleybuses, because they can be a little awkward. They're like discount buses, right? Like buses you get from B&M. They're not really great, but they have their use, very specific uses. Of course, there's some low density res here, with some pathways in between. Nothing massively amazing about this, just filling some of that residential demand. But we're seeing that nice repeated suburban pattern coming down here now as well, especially now all these assets are hitting level 5. It also came through with some repeated 3x3 spice here as well, which again, these apartment looking buildings work really nicely up against a waterfront. And then again, lots more pathways and detailing around here. Very nice to see. Some nice elevated action happening here too. And we also came in with some repeated 1x2 spice up against the edge of the suburb here, using some of the 1x2 high density Green City stuff. It has a really nice drive-by with the trains going past now. So these work very nicely in a repeated pattern. They look a little bit odd on their own, but when you sandwich them together like this, it almost looks like one single larger asset when you bunch them together like this. So yeah, they're pretty simple. It's a nice start to it. It looks a little bit naked at the minute because it has nothing around it. It's just kind of the edge of the city at this point. So I think once we have something else here, this should integrate quite nicely into the rest of the city as it burns down. How does the snow set fire? How does the snow burn? Anyway, welcome to Noveria, everyone. Let's move on to episode 9, where we worked on how to make high density residential look good. So the whole point of this episode was how mass zoning high density residential really takes away from the look and the aesthetic of the assets, and it makes it look very ugly if you don't control what assets come in. And I think we did a nice job here. So we focused on 3 different techniques. The first one was specifically zoning your high density res around organic greenbelt and using these open spaces to help kind of highlight that little jump in height. And this is something we get particularly a lot in the UK, and I think Europe in general, kind of these nice little green belts with the tower blocks and the flats and high rises in between. I'm thinking especially, there's a lot of this around West London for those that have been around there. But it's a nice way of integrating high density res. And then we did the same thing over here as well. Lots of specifically chosen shapes and historical in our buildings once they hit our desired level. So they don't get too tall and look too ridiculous, because a lot of them in Cities Skylines are pretty ranted, especially once they move into levels 4 and 5. The second technique which we did over here was using very heavily repeated patterns using the Art Deco content creator pack. to design something of a gated community or kind of, you know, a specific development. And these assets are great because they come with hedges, and when we run the paths in between, it's kind of like the path has a hedge. Very nice. Also ran one of the avenues with grass down the middle here as well, which people are actually using for parking, which is keeping them off this road here. It's really nice to see them using this road for parking, even though the assets are actually facing onto here, like this is the front of the house. Then the asset repeats on this side, next to the canal as well, again with lots more walking paths. And people crossing over into different ways. So nice. Nice to see them walking. And again, it's all complemented by more elevated American truss bridge, which is, I think, going to be everywhere in Noveria, isn't it? And we can see the power of this repeated pattern too. And this housing design here, it's also added a much needed burst of colour into the snowy scapes of Noveria, of course, because everything is white. But these houses work really nicely. These are the Art Deco ones, of course. If you are missing this content creator pack, there are links down to Instant Gaming below, where it's all ridiculously cheap these days. So if you maybe want to come and play with these assets and support the channel, then go ahead and check out the links in the description. But yeah, nice little technique, this one. Of course, very heavily repeated patterns of housing, path, road, path, housing. You can see the effect it has here now looking down this lateral line. And then there's some nice green belt stuff here too, linking in the trams, which of course take people into the town centre. And then the cycle network is over here as well, taking people around at the metro, and it's all interconnected and lovely. I really like it. I like this part of town, it's nice. It's got some nice personality to it, I think. And then the last technique we focused on about how to make high density residential look good was using the taller tower block assets around terraformed landscape and elevated infrastructure to create this look right here, which I think is really kind of coming together now as we begin to crawl towards our eventual downtown skyline. We're just seeing a few of these assets really pop. This place looks pretty nice at night time. We have a little look here, especially if we throw the American Truss Bridge in the foreground, and then you can just see these towers behind. And you know, even when we're kind of driving down the road here as well, we've got all these nice kind of assets and buildings up next to each other. And this theme will continue as this arterial flows in and out of the downtown. So nice little design. I'm really happy with this residential build, and it's a nice way of satisfying some of that residential demand too, without letting the high density residential get really ugly, which I think you all know what I'm talking about when you just zone it all out and don't pay attention to the assets that come in. A lot of those assets, they're just really nasty looking. At least to me, it takes a lot of the love and the enjoyment out of my cities when they start to look like that. So yeah, that was episode 9. Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed our little city recap, a like below is always appreciated. As much if you haven't enjoyed it and you don't enjoy these city recaps and would just rather see another build every 10 episodes, then please feel free to let me know in the comments and leave a dislike as well. I am really starting to enjoy Noveria now. I have to admit, when we first started, it didn't really have much personality to it, and it was difficult getting used to that relentless white. But I feel now, especially after our first live stream, that things are starting to get a little easier on the eye, and I'm getting into the groove and the vibe of Noveria a lot more. Now, I hope you guys are still enjoying it as well, and please feel free to let me know what your current favourite build in the city is and what else you're looking forward to seeing as the series progresses. We of course have a long way to go, and Noveria will be with us for a while yet, and I hope you are all enjoying it. I certainly am starting to enjoy it a lot more now anyway. But otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. Hang around for some full citywide cinematics with a classic Onyx track. But I want to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.